Every parent's worst nightmare is losing their child, and every child's deepest fear is being left alone in the cold. But sometimes, in the darkest moments, strangers become family in ways no one could imagine. Noah Wilder is a single dad working 3 jobs just to keep his daughter warm. During a brutal snowstorm, he finds 2 small children abandoned outside his door, freezing and scared. He brings them inside without hesitation. What he doesn't know is that these children belong to a billionaire mother who has been searching for them desperately. When she finally finds them, she sees something she never expected. The man who saved them has given them something money can't buy. But what happens when she has to choose between taking them back and destroying the only real family they've ever known? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The alarm clock's harsh buzz cut through the pre-dawn darkness at 4:30 a.m., same as it had every morning for the past 3 years. Noah Wilder's calloused hand found the button before his eyes fully opened, a routine so ingrained it felt like breathing. The small cabin held the deep chill of a Colorado winter morning, and he could hear the wind already picking up outside, rattling the windows with promises of the storm the weather service had been warning about all week. He pulled on yesterday's work, clothes flannel shirt, worn jeans, steel-toed boots that had seen better decades and padded quietly to the kitchen. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the small space with warmth and the rich aroma that had become his morning prayer. Through the frost-etched window above the sink, he could see his breath in the pale light filtering through the pines that surrounded their little home. The hand-carved wooden toy truck sat on the kitchen counter where Mia had left it the night before, its paint worn smooth by countless adventures. Noah had made it for her 6th birthday, back when his hands were steadier and his heart less heavy. Now, at 8, she still carried it everywhere, a testament to the simple love that bound their small family together despite everything they lacked in material wealth. Their cabin wasn't much to look at from the outside. Built in the 1950s, it had weathered 40-plus Colorado winters with the stubborn persistence of mountain folk. The roof needed new shingles, the front steps sagged slightly on the left side, and the heating bills made Noah wince every month. But it was their paid for with Sarah's life insurance money after the accident that changed everything. It was the one thing he'd never mortgage, never risk, because it represented the only security he could guarantee his daughter. The living room held a wood-burning stove that did most of their heating, surrounded by a couch with patches on the arms and a coffee table Noah had built from reclaimed barnwood. Mia's artwork covered the refrigerator, and most of one wall drawings of mountains and animals, school assignments with gold stars, and always, pictures of the 3 of them, Daddy, Mia, and Mama, even though Sarah had been gone for 3 years now. Noah poured his coffee into a travel mug and checked the thermostat. 62 degrees as high as he dared, set it with the electric bill already stretching his budget thin. He added another log to the wood stove, banking the coals for the day ahead. The familiar ritual brought a moment of peace before the storm of his daily responsibilities began. At 5:15, he knocked gently on Mia's bedroom door before pushing it open. She slept curled under 2 quilts, her dark hair so much like her mother's spread across the pillow. Her room was small but warm, decorated with hand-me-down furniture, painted cheerful yellow, and shelves lined with books from the library and yard sales. A nightlight shaped like a moon cast soft shadows on walls covered with her drawings and a few precious photographs. "Morning, sunshine," he whispered, sitting on the edge of her narrow bed. "Time to get up." Mia stirred, blinking up at him with eyes that held wisdom beyond her 8 years. She'd grown up fast after losing her mother, becoming his partner in the daily dance of survival and small joys. "Is it snowing yet, Daddy?" "Not yet, but it's coming. Mrs. Henderson said she'd pick you up for school if the roads get bad, okay?" He smoothed her hair back from her forehead, the gesture automatic and tender. "I left your oatmeal on the stove, and there's orange juice in the fridge." She nodded, already pushing back the covers. At 8, Mia could get herself ready for school, make simple meals, and handle more responsibility than most children her age. It wasn't ideal, but it was their reality. Noah worked construction from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m., then drove the county snowplow from 4 p.m. to midnight during winter months, and picked up handyman jobs on weekends. 3 jobs to keep them afloat, but it meant Mia spent a lot of time with neighbors or alone. "Will you be home for dinner?" she asked, pulling on her school clothes jeans, with patches on the knees and a sweater that was slightly too big, bought with room to grow. "Should be, unless this storm hits earlier than expected. But Mrs. Chen said you could eat with them if I get stuck plowing." He kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, the cheap kind from the grocery store, that somehow still smelled like childhood and hope. The drive to his construction job took 20 minutes on winding mountain roads that would be treacherous once the snow started. Noah's pickup truck, a 1,998 Ford with 200 miles and a heater that worked most of the time, handled the terrain with the reliability of an old friend. He knew every curve, every pothole, every spot where ice formed first when the temperature dropped. Work was framing a new house for the Petersons, a retired couple from Denver who'd bought 5 acres of pristine mountain view. Noah arrived to find his crew already gathering, drinking coffee from thermoses and studying the darkening sky with the practiced eyes of men who made their living outdoors. "Storm's coming in faster than they predicted," said Jake, the crew foreman. "We might get an early day if this keeps up." Noah nodded, pulling on his work gloves. The physical labor felt good, swinging a hammer, measuring cuts, the satisfaction of seeing walls rise from foundation to frame. It was honest work that left him tired in a clean way, unlike the worry that kept him awake at night, calculating bills and grocery money. By noon, the first fat snowflakes were drifting down, and the wind had picked up enough to make precision work dangerous. Jake called it early, and Noah was grateful. The county would need him on the plow by 3 p.m. if this kept up, and he wanted to check on Mia before the worst of it hit. The drive home took longer than usual as the snow began to stick to the roads. Other drivers crept along the mountain highway, hazard lights blinking, while Noah's truck handled the conditions with the confidence of familiarity. He'd driven these roads in every kind of weather Colorado could throw at him. Mia was already home when he pulled into their narrow driveway, her backpack dumped by the door and her snow boots leaving wet prints on the kitchen linoleum. She looked up from her homework with a smile that could light up their whole cabin. "School let out early," she announced. "Mrs. Patterson said this might be the big one they've been talking about." Noah looked out the window at the snow now falling steadily, already coating the pine branches and accumulating on the ground. The Weather Service had been predicting a major storm system, the kind that could dump 2 feet of snow and knock out power for days. In their remote location, that meant being prepared for self-sufficiency. "Looks like they might be right," he said, moving to check their supplies. The pantry held enough canned goods for a week, the propane tank for the generator was full, and they had plenty of firewood stacked under the covered porch. Living in the mountains had taught them both the importance of preparation. "Can we make hot chocolate?" Mia asked, already knowing the answer. Snow days meant special treats, even when money was tight. "Of course. You get the marshmallows while I check the radio." The local emergency broadcast confirmed what Noah could see from his window. A major winter storm was bearing down on their area, with predictions of heavy snow, high winds, and possible power outages. He made mental notes: charge the battery packs, fill extra water containers, make sure the flashlights had fresh batteries. They spent the afternoon in comfortable routine. Noah split more firewood, while Mia helped stack it, both of them working with the practiced efficiency of a team. The snow continued to fall, transforming their familiar landscape into something pristine and otherworldly. By evening, the accumulation was already 6 inches deep and showing no signs of slowing. Dinner was simple grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, but they ate by candlelight, pretending it was elegant, instead of practical preparation for the power outages that always came with big storms. Mia chatted about school, about her friend Emma's new puppy, about the book report she was working on. Her voice filled the small cabin with warmth that had nothing to do with the wood stove. "Tell me about Mama," she said as Noah tucked her into bed, the same request she made whenever storms made the night feel bigger and more uncertain. Noah settled into the chair beside her bed, the same chair where he'd spent countless nights when she was smaller, reading stories and chasing away nightmares. "What do you want to know tonight?" "Tell me about how she laughed." He closed his eyes for a moment, reaching back through 3 years of grief to find the memory intact and shining. "Your mama had the most beautiful laugh. It started quiet, like she was trying to keep it inside, but then it would just bubble up and fill the whole room. She laughed at everything: bad jokes, silly movies, the way I sang in the shower." Mia giggled. "You do sing pretty badly, Daddy." She used to say I sounded like a moose with a cold. The memory brought both pain and comfort, like all memories of Sarah did. But she loved it anyway because it meant I was happy. "Do you think she would like our life now?" The question came softly, with the weight of a child trying to understand loss and love, and the way life continues even after everything changes. Noah reached over to smooth her hair, the gesture automatic and reverent. "I think she'd be proud of how strong and kind you've grown up to be. I think she'd love seeing you help Mrs. Chen with her groceries, and the way you share your lunch with Tommy when he forgets his. I think she'd be amazed at what a good team we make." Mia nodded, satisfied for tonight. "Will you stay until I fall asleep?" "Always." Noah sat in the darkened room, listening to his daughter's breathing settle into sleep, while the wind howled around their small cabin and snow continued to pile against the windows. He thought about the storm gathering outside, about the long night of plowing that awaited him, about the bills on his kitchen table and the groceries they'd need next week. But mostly he thought about how much he loved this life they'd built together, precarious and challenging as it was. They had each other, they had this home, and they had the deep satisfaction that came from meeting each day with courage and grace. In a world that often measured worth by bank accounts and possessions, Noah Wilder knew he was rich in the ways that truly mattered. Outside, the storm continued to build, and neither he nor Mia had any idea that before it passed, their small family of 2 would become something larger and more complex than either of them could imagine. Sometimes the most profound changes arrive quietly, disguised as ordinary moments, waiting to reveal themselves when hearts are ready to expand beyond what they thought possible. The wind picked up another notch, rattling the windows with increasing urgency, and Noah settled deeper into his chair, watching over his sleeping daughter and their peaceful world, the last quiet moments before everything changed. The storm hit with the fury of something personal and vindictive. By 10 o'clock that night, Noah was suited up in his heavy winter gear, preparing to head out for his shift on the county plow. The wind had picked up to a constant howl, driving snow horizontally across their property and piling drifts against anything that stood in its path. "You sure you have to go out in this?" Mia asked from the couch, where she was reading by the light of the battery-powered lantern they'd set up when the power went out an hour earlier. Noah zipped up his insulated coveralls and pulled on his wool cap. "The roads won't clear themselves, sweetheart. People need to get to the hospital, to work, to the grocery store. Besides, we need the overtime pay." He kissed the top of her head and checked the wood stove one more time. "Mrs. Chen said to call if you need anything, and I left her number by the phone. I should be back by 6 in the morning, maybe sooner if they call us in early." The walk to his truck was treacherous. Snow had already accumulated to nearly a foot, and the wind cut through his heavy coat like it was made of paper. The truck started reluctantly, coughing to life in the bitter cold, and Noah spent 10 minutes clearing snow from the windshield and mirrors. The drive to the county maintenance yard took twice as long as usual. Even with 4-wheel drive and snow tires, the truck slipped and slid on the unplowed back roads. Other vehicles crept along at walking speed, hazard lights blinking through the white curtain of falling snow. At the yard, Noah transferred to his assigned plow truck a massive orange beast with a 12-foot blade and enough weight to push through anything winter could throw at it. The cab was warm and familiar, equipped with a CB radio, GPS, and a thermos of coffee that would be his companion through the long night ahead. "All units, this is dispatch." The radio crackled. "We've got reports of multiple accidents on Highway 285, and the storm's intensifying. Priority routes first, then secondary roads, as conditions allow." Noah pulled out of the yard and into the storm. The plow blades scraped against asphalt, throwing snow in high arcs to either side of the road. Visibility was nearly zero just, the narrow cone of his headlights cutting through the swirling white darkness. For 4 hours, he worked the main highways, pushing back the accumulation and spreading salt and sand on the worst curves. The radio chattered constantly with reports of stranded motorists, accidents, and roads becoming impassable despite their best efforts. This wasn't just a big storm, it was the kind of blizzard that would be remembered and talked about for years. Around 2 a.m., dispatch sent him to clear the back roads in his own neighborhood. The secondary routes were always last priority, but people still needed access for emergencies. Noah turned his plow toward home, grateful for the chance to check on his own area. The familiar roads were barely recognizable under the snow. Drifts had formed across the pavement, some nearly 4 feet high, where the wind had carved and sculpted the accumulation. Street signs were buried, and the landmarks Noah knew by heart had disappeared into the white uniformity of the storm. He was clearing the road that led past his own driveway when something made him stop. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was the way his headlights caught a flash of color that didn't belong in the monochrome landscape. Noah set the parking brake and climbed down from the cab, his boots crunching through snow that came up to his knees. The wind hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath and driving snow into his eyes. He pulled his cap down and his collar up, squinting against the stinging cold as he walked toward whatever had caught his attention. That's when he saw them. 2 small figures huddled against the base of a pine tree just off the road, maybe 30 yards from his own driveway. At first, Noah thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Surely no one would be out in this storm, especially not children. But as he got closer, the impossible became undeniably real. A little girl and an even smaller boy, pressed together for warmth under the inadequate shelter of the tree's lower branches. They were dressed in what had once been good winter clothes, but their coats were soaked through, and their small faces were blue with cold. The girl looked up at him with eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young, while the boy seemed barely conscious. "Hey there," Noah said gently, kneeling in the snow despite the cold seeping through his coveralls. "What are you doing out here?" The girl's lips were too cold to form words, but she reached toward him with a mittened hand gesture of desperate trust that hit him like a punch to the chest. The emergency blanket he kept in his first aid kit was in his hands before conscious thought kicked in, wrapped around both children as he gathered them against his chest. They were so small, so cold, so impossibly vulnerable in the face of nature's fury. The boy couldn't have been more than 4 years old, the girl maybe 5 or 6. How had they gotten here? Where were their parents? The questions could wait right now. They needed warmth and shelter before hypothermia claimed them both. Noah half-carried, half-guided them to his plow truck, lifting them into the warm cab where the heater had been running all night. The girl climbed onto the passenger seat while he settled the boy on his lap, both children shivering violently as their bodies began to register the dramatic temperature change. "It's okay," he murmured, the same tone he used with Mia after nightmares. "You're safe now. Everything's going to be okay." The radio crackled with another dispatch call, but Noah ignored it. He stripped off his heavy coat and wrapped it around the children, then reached for his cell phone. No signal the storm had knocked out the cell towers, same as it did every winter. The CB radio connected him to dispatch, but not to the authorities who needed to know about finding these children. The boy was the more concerning of the two. His lips had a blue tinge that spoke of dangerous cold exposure, and his breathing was shallow and rapid. The girl watched Noah with steady eyes, protective of her companion in a way that suggested they'd been taking care of each other for a while. "What are your names?" Noah asked softly. "Lily," the girl whispered, her voice barely audible over the truck's heater fan. "This is Max." Lily and Max, those are beautiful names. Noah adjusted his coat around them, making sure they were both covered. "Can you tell me where your parents are?" Lily's face crumpled, and she shook her head. Max hadn't spoken at all, just pressed closer to his sister with the instinctive trust of very young children. Noah made a decision that would change all their lives, though he couldn't have known it at the time. The roads were impassable, the authorities unreachable, and these children needed immediate care. His own daughter was warm and safe at home, but these two were minutes away from serious injury, or worse. He radioed dispatch with his location and situation, explaining that he'd found two lost children and was taking them to safety. The response was immediate: bring them to the nearest emergency shelter or hospital if possible, but keep them warm and safe above all else. The drive home was the longest 5 minutes of Noah's life. Every slip of the tires on the snow-packed road sent his heart racing, imagining what would happen if they got stuck or slid off into a ditch. But the big plow truck handled the conditions with steady determination, and soon Noah was pulling into his own driveway. The cabin's windows glowed with warm light from the battery-powered lanterns inside. Noah gathered the children, Lily walking on unsteady legs. Max carried in his arms and pushed through the knee-deep snow to his front door. "Mia," he called as he shouldered the door open, "I need your help." His daughter appeared from the living room, took one look at the small, snow-covered figures in her father's arms, and instantly understood the situation with the quick intelligence that had always amazed him. "I'll get blankets," she said, already moving toward the linen closet, "and I'll put more wood on the fire." Noah carried the children to the couch, settling them close to the wood stove where the heat would reach them fastest. Lily's eyes darted around the small cabin, taking in the modest furniture, the family photos on the walls, the comfortable clutter of their everyday life. Max had closed his eyes, but his breathing was steadier now that he was warm. "Are they okay?" Mia asked, returning with an armload of quilts and blankets. "I think so. Cold and scared, but I think they'll be fine." Noah tucked the blankets around both children, then moved to the kitchen to heat milk for hot chocolate. Physical warmth was only part of what they needed. Comfort and security would be just as important for their recovery. The next hour passed in quiet ministrations, hot chocolate sipped from mugs wrapped in small hands. Mia sitting cross-legged on the floor, talking softly to Lily about her drawings on the walls. Max falling asleep against Noah's chest, finally warm and safe enough to let exhaustion take him. By 4 in the morning, both children were sleeping peacefully on the couch, wrapped in every blanket Noah owned. Mia had curled up in the big chair with her own quilt, unwilling to leave the newcomers alone, even in sleep. Noah sat in his kitchen, drinking coffee and trying to process what had happened. 2 children, abandoned in a blizzard, with no explanation of how they'd gotten there or where they'd come from. Their clothes suggested money-good quality winter gear, though soaked through from exposure. Their manner of speaking, what little he'd heard, seemed educated and refined. The storm continued to rage outside, making travel impossible and communication sporadic. The authorities would have to wait until morning, maybe longer. For now, these children were his responsibility, and that felt both overwhelming and completely natural. Looking at his expanded household, 3 children sleeping peacefully while the storm raged, Noah felt a strange sense of completion, as if something he hadn't realized was missing had suddenly been found. Tomorrow would bring questions, complications, and difficult decisions. But tonight, everyone was warm and safe, and that was enough. Morning came grey and muffled, the storm having exhausted itself sometime before dawn. Noah woke on the kitchen chair where he dozed fitfully, his back protesting the awkward position. The cabin was quiet except for the steady tick of the old mantel clock and the soft breathing of 3 sleeping children. Lily and Max were still curled together on the couch, small faces peaceful in sleep. Mia had migrated from the chair to the floor beside them, one protective hand resting on the edge of the couch. Even in sleep, she'd positioned herself as their guardian. Noah moved quietly to the window and pushed aside the curtain. The world outside had been transformed into something from a fairy tale's drifted against the cabin walls, pine trees bent under the weight of white branches. and his truck was barely visible as a rounded mound in the driveway. The storm had left at least 2 feet of snow, with drifts much deeper where the wind had sculpted them. The power was still out, but the wood stove had kept them warm through the night. Noah added fresh logs and started coffee on the propane camp stove, the familiar morning ritual grounding him after the surreal events of the previous night. Mia stirred first, sitting up and immediately checking on the 2 smaller children. "Are they okay, Daddy?" They seemed to be. Their colors better, and they slept through the night. Noah poured coffee into his favorite mug and sat on the edge of the coffee table, studying the sleeping pair. "We need to figure out how to contact someone about them, but the phones are still down." "Can't we just keep them until someone comes looking?" Mia asked, with the straightforward logic of childhood. "They need somewhere to stay, and we have room." Noah smiled at his daughter's generous heart, but the situation was more complicated than she understood. "It's not that simple, sweetheart. They have parents somewhere who are probably worried sick. We need to help find their family." Max stirred at the sound of their voices, blinking up at them with dark eyes that seemed too serious for his young face. He sat up slowly, looking around the unfamiliar room with careful attention to detail. "Good morning, Max," Noah said gently. "How are you feeling?" The boy considered the question with the gravity of someone much older. "Warm," he said finally, his voice soft but clear. Lily woke a moment later, immediately reaching for Max's hand in a gesture that spoke of practiced protectiveness. She looked up at Noah with the same careful assessment he'd seen the night before. "Are you hungry?" Mia asked, already moving toward the kitchen. "Daddy makes really good pancakes, and we have syrup." The mention of food seemed to break through whatever reserve the children had maintained. Lily nodded eagerly, and Max's eyes brightened with interest. Breakfast became an exercise in gentle coaxing and patient observation. The children ate with good manners but obvious hunger, suggesting they hadn't had a proper meal in some time. They used their utensils correctly, said please and thank you without prompting, and showed none of the behavioral issues Noah might have expected from traumatized children. "These are really good," Lily said, cutting her pancakes into precise squares, "better than the ones at the hotel." "What hotel?" Noah asked carefully, not wanting to pressure her but hoping for clues about their situation. Lily's face closed off immediately, and she exchanged a glance with Max that seemed to carry a complex conversation. "Just a hotel," she said, her voice smaller than before. Noah didn't push. Whatever had happened to bring these children to his doorstep in the middle of a blizzard, they weren't ready to talk about it yet. Trust would have to be earned slowly, carefully. After breakfast, Mia took charge of entertaining their guests, while Noah tried to reach the outside world. The landline was dead, his cell phone had no signal, and the CB radio in his truck only connected him to other stranded drivers and emergency services that were overwhelmed with storm-related calls. He finally reached the county sheriff's office through the emergency radio system, reporting the found children to Deputy Martinez, who knew Noah from his snowplow work. "Any sign of parents looking for them?" Noah asked. "Nothing yet, but communications are spotty. Could be reports filed in other counties that we haven't heard about. Roads are impassable right now, but we'll get someone out to you as soon as possible." While Noah handled the logistics, Mia had appointed herself as tour guide and entertainment director. She showed Lily and Max her room, her art supplies, and the small collection of books she'd accumulated over the years. The children followed her with quiet attention, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in her world. "This is the picture I drew of our family," Mia explained, pointing to a crayon drawing on her bedroom wall. 3 stick figures stood in front of a small house, with Daddy, Mia, and Mama written in careful letters underneath. Lily studied the drawing with intense focus. "Where is your Mama now?" "She's in heaven," Mia said matter-of-factly. "She died in a car accident when I was 5, but Daddy says she's still watching over us." Max reached up and touched the drawing gently. "Our Mama is lost too," he said, his first unprompted statement since arriving. "Maybe she'll find her way back," Mia said with the optimism of childhood. "People who love you always try to find their way back." Noah, listening from the doorway, felt his heart clench at the simple wisdom of his daughter's words and the profound sadness in Max's voice. The day developed its own rhythm. The children seemed to relax incrementally, their shoulders losing some of their tension, their voices growing slightly louder. Lily revealed an artistic streak, working alongside Mia on a drawing that showed 4 stick figures standing together. Max gravitated toward Noah, following him as he completed small tasks around the cabin and asking quiet questions about everything from the wood stove to the emergency radio. "How does the fire stay burning?" Max asked, watching Noah add logs to the stove. "You have to feed it regularly, like any living thing," Noah explained. "Give it fuel, make sure it has enough air to breathe, and it'll keep you warm." Max nodded solemnly, absorbing this information with the intensity of someone filing it away for future reference. By mid-afternoon, Noah had managed to reach several agencies and file reports about the found children. The process was complicated by the storm's aftermath: phone lines down, computers offline, and personnel dealing with emergency calls across 3 counties. Everyone was sympathetic and professional, but the reality was stark. Until the roads cleared and normal communications resumed, Noah was responsible for 2 children whose identities and circumstances remained a mystery. "Social services will send someone as soon as possible," the caseworker had told him over the crackling radio connection. "Could be tomorrow, could be longer depending on road conditions. Just keep them safe and comfortable." As evening approached, Noah found himself watching the children with growing concern and attachment. They were polite, well-behaved, and obviously intelligent, but there was something guarded about them that suggested recent trauma. They started at sudden noises, glanced frequently toward the windows as if expecting something, and maintained a subtle physical closeness that spoke of mutual protection. The most telling moment came when Noah was preparing dinner and accidentally dropped a pot, the metal clanging loudly against the kitchen floor. Both children froze instantly, their faces going pale, and Max actually moved to shield Lily with his small body. "It's okay," Noah said quickly, kneeling to their level. "Just clumsy old me dropping things. You're safe here." The children relaxed slowly, but the incident revealed the depth of whatever fear they carried. Someone or something had taught them to expect danger, to react to sudden sounds with protective instincts that no 4- and 5-year-old should need to develop. That evening, as they gathered around the wood stove for stories, Mia produced a piece of paper from her art supplies. "I drew this for you," she announced, holding up a carefully crafted picture. 4 stick figures stood in front of the cabin, all holding hands under a bright yellow sun. "That's our family now, Daddy, me, Lily, and Max." Lily took the drawing with reverent care, studying it as if it were a precious artifact. "Can we really be family?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Family isn't just about sharing the same blood," Noah said, thinking of all the ways his small community had supported him and Mia over the years. "Family is about people who take care of each other, who make room in their hearts for everyone who needs a place to belong." Max climbed onto the couch beside Noah, settling against his side with the trust that children reserve for adults who have proven themselves safe. "Will you take care of us until our mama comes back?" The question hung in the air, weighted with hope and fear in equal measure. Noah looked at these 2 small faces turned up toward him, at his own daughter who had already claimed them as siblings, and felt something shift in his chest. "Yes," he said simply, "for as long as you need me to, I'll take care of you." Outside, the wind had picked up again, rattling the windows and reminding them all of the storm that had brought them together. But inside the small cabin, 4 people who had been strangers less than 24 hours earlier were becoming something new, not quite a family yet, but heading in that direction with the inexorable pull of hearts, recognizing their missing pieces. 1 week had passed since the storm, and the routine they'd established felt both natural and fragile. Noah had managed to reach his supervisor and arrange for extended leave unpaid, but necessary under the circumstances. The county understood. Everyone in mountain communities knew that sometimes life threw you situations that required dropping everything else. The roads had been cleared enough for essential travel, though many side streets remained treacherous. More importantly, phone service had been restored, allowing Noah to file proper reports with Child Protective Services, the local police, and the FBI's missing children database. The responses were uniformly sympathetic, but frustratingly vague matches in their systems. No reports of missing children fitting Lily and Max's descriptions. It's like they appeared out of thin air. Deputy Martinez had told Noah during his visit 2 days earlier. Good quality clothes, obviously from a family with means, but no identification, no missing persons reports, nothing. The social worker, Mrs. Garrett, had been equally puzzled but impressed with Noah's care of the children. A tired woman in her 50s who'd seen too many difficult cases, she observed the children's interactions with Noah and Mia with the sharp eye of someone trained to spot problems. They're remarkably well adjusted for children who've experienced trauma, she noted, watching Max help Noah set the table while Lily and Mia worked on a puzzle together. Usually we see more behavioral issues, regression, anxiety. These two seem to have bonded with your family remarkably quickly. They're good kids, Noah had replied, meaning it completely. Whatever happened to them before, they're safe now. Mrs. Garrett had nodded approvingly. We'll continue the search for their family, but in the meantime, I'm comfortable with temporary guardianship. The paperwork should be finalized by next week. Now, as Noah watched Mia teach Lily how to braid friendship bracelets while Max helped him repair a loose cabinet door, he found himself hoping the search would take a very long time. The children had integrated into their lives with surprising ease, filling spaces he hadn't realized were empty. The financial strain was significant: 3 additional mouths to feed, higher heating bills, and the cost of clothes and supplies for the children, but somehow they were managing. The community had rallied with donations and support, as mountain communities always did when neighbors faced hardship. Mrs. Chen had arrived with bags of children's clothes her grandchildren had outgrown. Tom Bradley from the hardware store had quietly delivered a bunk bed, claiming it was taking up space in his warehouse. The elementary school had enrolled both children without question, providing free lunches and even backpacks filled with supplies. People take care of each other here, Noah had explained to Lily when she asked why everyone was being so nice to them. That's what neighbors do. The children's integration into school had provided both reassurance and new questions. Lily's kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Patterson, had called Noah within the first week. I need to discuss Lily's academic level with you, she'd said, her tone carefully neutral. She's reading at a 3rd grade level, and her mathematical reasoning is quite advanced. Her vocabulary and general knowledge suggest extensive educational enrichment. Max's pre-K teacher had echoed similar observations. Both children demonstrated educational advantages that suggested private tutoring, expensive educational toys, and exposure to cultural experiences beyond what most local families could provide. They've had advantages, Noah had acknowledged, but they're still just kids who need stability and love. The teachers agreed, noting that despite their advanced academic skills, both children showed normal social and emotional development patterns. They played well with others, followed directions, and seemed genuinely happy to be in school. What struck everyone who met them was their unusual maturity and their protective instincts toward each other. Lily would quietly help Max with tasks that challenged him, while Max would share his snacks with Lily, even when she wasn't hungry. They moved through the world as a unit, rarely more than a few feet apart. Noah had started carrying his phone everywhere, expecting the call that would change everything. Parents who had finally tracked down their missing children, relatives coming to claim them, authorities with answers about their mysterious appearance. Each day that passed without that call brought both relief and growing attachment. The children, for their part, seemed to bloom in the stable environment. Max's vocabulary expanded daily, and his questions revealed a sharp intelligence and natural curiosity about everything from cloud formations to how engines worked. Lily's artistic abilities flourished with access to proper supplies, and her drawings showed increasing detail and emotional complexity. The most significant development came on a quiet Sunday morning as they sat around the breakfast table, pancakes cooling on their plates, while everyone lingered over the unhurried conversation that marked their weekend mornings. "Noah," Lily said carefully, the first time she'd used his name instead of Mr. or Sir. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." She exchanged a look with Max, one of their silent conversations that had become familiar. "If our mama comes back, would you still want to see us sometimes?" The question hit Noah with unexpected force. These children weren't just thinking about their current situation, they were planning for a future that included him and Mia, even if their circumstances changed. "Lily, honey, I hope your mama comes back, because I know she must be missing you terribly. But yes, I would always want to see you. You're part of our family now, no matter what happens." Max climbed down from his chair and wrapped his small arms around Noah's waist. "Good, because I don't want to lose another daddy." The words were spoken matter-of-factly, but they revealed depths of loss that Noah was only beginning to understand. These children had experienced more upheaval and grief than most adults could handle, yet they were offering their trust and affection with the wholehearted generosity that only children possess. That afternoon, while the children napped and Mia worked on homework, Noah found himself examining the few clues they possessed about Lily and Max's background. Their clothes, now clean and carefully folded, told a story of quality and expense. The labels were from high-end children's boutiques, the kind of stores Noah had never set foot in. Lily's small purse, found in her coat pocket, contained nothing but a silver locket with the initials SV engraved on the front. The locket wouldn't open, some trick to the clasp that Noah couldn't figure out, but he'd noticed Lily touching it frequently, as if drawing comfort from whatever it contained. He'd mentioned it to Mrs. Garrett, who'd photographed it for their files, but so far it had yielded no leads. What troubled Noah most was the children's reaction to certain questions. Any inquiry about where they'd been before the storm, how they'd ended up alone in the snow, or details about their parents caused them to shut down emotionally. Not defiant or rebellious, but simply unavailable, as if they'd learned to protect certain information through practiced silence. Sometimes children create their own ways of coping with trauma, Mrs. Garrett had explained. They may not be ready to talk about what happened, or they may have been instructed not to discuss certain things. We have to respect their timeline for healing. Noah respected that timeline, but his protective instincts were fully engaged. Whatever had brought these children into his life, whatever dangers they might have fled from, he was determined to keep them safe while they healed and grew strong enough to face whatever came next. The evening routine had evolved to accommodate their expanded family. Dinner together around the small kitchen table, homework time with Mia helping Lily with reading while Noah worked with Max on letter recognition, and stories by the fire before bed. They'd moved the bunk bed into Mia's room, and the three children had adapted to shared space with the easy flexibility of youth. As he tucked all three children into their beds that night, Noah reflected on how completely his life had changed in just 1 week. The financial pressures were real, the uncertainty about the future was challenging, but the joy and purpose these children had brought into their home was immeasurable. "Daddy," Mia whispered from her bed as he prepared to turn off the light. "I'm glad they found us." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." From the bunk bed came Max's sleepy voice. "Noah, will you leave the light on in the hallway?" "Of course, buddy. And can you check the locks on the doors?" Noah paused, recognizing the request for what it was not typical childhood fear of the dark, but learned caution from experience with real danger. "I'll check everything twice, Max. Everyone's safe here." As he made his rounds through the small cabin, testing locks and checking windows, Noah wondered what these children had experienced that made security checks feel necessary to a 4-year-old. Whatever their story, whatever had brought them to his door during that storm, he was committed to helping them heal and grow in safety. Outside, the mountain night was clear and cold, stars brilliant in the thin air. Inside, 4 people who'd been strangers just 1 week ago slept peacefully under the same roof, bound together by circumstances none of them could have predicted, but all of them had embraced with open hearts. The future remained uncertain, but for tonight, everyone was exactly where they belonged. 2 weeks had passed since Noah discovered the children, and the rhythm of their expanded household had settled into something that felt surprisingly permanent. The expensive winter coat hanging in their front closet, child-sized parka, with a designer label that probably cost more than Noah spent on groceries in a month, served as a daily reminder that Lily and Max came from a world very different from his own. Noah noticed things about the children that spoke of privilege and careful upbringing. Max unconsciously corrected Mia's grammar during breakfast conversations, not in a mean way, but with the automatic precision of someone taught to speak properly from birth. Lily knew words like exquisite and sophisticated, using them naturally in contexts that made perfect sense but seemed advanced for a 5-year-old. More telling were their unconscious expectations. Max had been genuinely confused when Noah explained that they couldn't order groceries to be delivered. The concept of driving to a store to shop was foreign to him. Lily had asked if their housekeeper would be coming to clean their room, then looked embarrassed when she realized the implications of her question. "We don't have a housekeeper, sweetheart," Noah had explained gently. "We all help keep the house clean together. That's how families work." The children adapted to these revelations with remarkable grace, throwing themselves into household chores with the enthusiasm of kids playing house. Max insisted on helping fold laundry, creating elaborate systems for organizing socks. Lily appointed herself assistant cook, standing on a chair at the counter to help Noah prepare meals. But it was the small things that revealed the depth of change in their previous circumstances. The way Max hoarded crackers in his pockets, as if uncertain when the next meal might come. How Lily would sometimes wake from naps looking confused and slightly panicked until she saw Noah or Mia. The careful way both children asked permission for everything, even things as simple as getting a drink of water. They're learning to trust their environment again, Mrs. Garrett had observed during her weekly check-in. Children who've experienced instability often need time to believe that safety and routine are genuine. The most significant development came during Max's 3rd week at preschool. His teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, called Noah with excitement in her voice. "You need to see what Max did in math circle today," she said. "We were working on basic addition, and he started solving multiplication problems in his head. Not just simple ones, calculated 27 times 13 without writing anything down." When Noah picked up the children that afternoon, Mrs. Rodriguez showed him Max's work. The 4-year-old had progressed through the entire kindergarten math workbook in 2 weeks and was asking for more challenging problems. "Has he had formal mathematical instruction?" she asked. "This level of numerical reasoning suggests significant early education investment." Noah studied the neat rows of problems Max had completed, each answer correct, the work showing logical progression and mathematical understanding that seemed impossible for someone so young. "I honestly don't know," he admitted. "They haven't talked much about their life before." Similar reports came from Lily's kindergarten teacher. The 5-year-old was reading at a 4th grade level and had surprised everyone by speaking conversational Spanish during their weekly language lesson. She says her other teacher taught her Spanish and French, Mrs. Patterson reported. "When I asked about this teacher, she got that closed-off look you mentioned and changed the subject." These revelations painted a picture of children who'd had access to expensive private education, multiple tutors, and cultural experiences far beyond what most families could provide. It also raised uncomfortable questions about how 2 such privileged children had ended up abandoned in a Colorado blizzard. Noah's financial situation, meanwhile, was reaching a critical point. The unpaid leave from his construction job was stretching his savings thin, and the costs of caring for 3 children were mounting daily. The community continued to help with donations and support, but Noah's pride made accepting charity difficult. The crisis came when Mia developed a fever that spiked to 103 degrees, requiring an emergency room visit. The antibiotics and medical bills would strain his budget to the breaking point, and he still had to miss more work while caring for her. "Daddy's worried about money," Lily observed quietly to Max as they sat in the hospital waiting room while Mia slept off her fever. "I can see it in his face." Max nodded solemnly. "Maybe we should tell him about—" "No," Lily interrupted sharply. "We can't. Remember what happened before. We have to stay hidden." Noah, returning with coffee, caught only the end of their whispered conversation, but it confirmed his growing suspicion that the children were hiding something significant about their past. Not just trauma, but specific information they'd been taught to protect. That evening, as Mia recovered at home and the other children played quietly in the living room, Noah sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by bills and bank statements. The numbers didn't lie, was facing a choice between keeping his family fed and keeping the heat on. The medical bills from Mia's emergency room visit were the final straw on an already overloaded budget. He was so absorbed in his calculations that he didn't notice Lily approaching until she placed something on the table beside his papers. It was her silver locket, the one she'd worn since the night he found them. "This might help," she said quietly. "It's real silver, and there are diamonds on the back. Mama said it was very valuable." Noah looked down at the delicate piece of jewelry, then at the serious 5-year-old who'd offered to sacrifice her most precious possession for his financial troubles. The gesture broke his heart and filled it simultaneously. "Lily, sweetheart, I can't take your locket. It's yours, and it's obviously special to you." "But you need money to take care of us," she said, with the practical logic of childhood. "If selling it helps, then that's what Mama would want." Noah knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in his work-roughened ones. "We'll figure out the money part, okay? That's my job as the grown-up. Your job is just to be a kid, and let me worry about everything else." Lily studied his face with those two serious eyes. "Are you sure? Because before, when things got bad with money, that's when the bad men came looking for us." The statement hung in the air like a revelation. Noah felt puzzle pieces clicking into place, the children's fear of sudden noises, their need for security checks, their carefully guarded silence about their past. "What bad men, Lily?" But she'd already retreated into that familiar protective silence, taking her locket back and shaking her head. "I'm not supposed to talk about it." That night, after all 3 children were asleep, Noah called Mrs. Garrett on her emergency line. "I think these children may have been in witness protection or hiding from someone," he told her quietly. "Some of the things Lily said today suggest they were running from dangerous people." Mrs. Garrett was quiet for a long moment. That would explain the lack of missing persons reports and the advanced security protocols when we try to trace their backgrounds. "I'll make some calls tomorrow to federal agencies that handle those kinds of cases." The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Noah answered a knock at his door to find a man in an expensive suit, clearly out of place in their rural mountain community. "Mr. Wilder, I'm James Harrison, a private investigator. I'm looking for 2 children who may have been found in this area recently." Noah's protective instincts flared immediately. The man's credentials looked legitimate, but something about his manner set off warning bells. "And you are working for whom, exactly?" "Their family, of course. They've been missing for months, and we have reason to believe they may have been located here." Harrison produced photographs of Lily and Max, clearly professional portraits taken in what looked like an upscale studio. "These children have names, Mr. Harrison. If you're really working for their family, you'd know what they are." Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, Lily and Max Vale. Their mother is very anxious to have them returned." Noah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Colorado winter. The man knew their names, had recent photographs, and claimed to represent their mother. But every instinct Noah possessed was screaming that something was wrong. "I'll need to verify your credentials and contact the authorities before I can provide any information about any children," Noah said carefully. Harrison's demeanor shifted slightly, the polite facade slipping. "Mr. Wilder, I understand your caution, but these children belong with their family. Their mother has been searching for them desperately. Then she can contact Child Protective Services through proper channels," Noah replied, already moving to close the door. "Good day, Mr. Harrison." As soon as the door was closed and locked, Noah rushed to the living room where the children were playing. The moment Lily saw his expression, her face went pale. "Was it one of them?" she whispered. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I need you and Max to go to Mia's room and stay there while I make some phone calls." The children didn't argue, gathering their toys with the practiced efficiency of kids who'd learned to hide quickly when adults told them to. Noah immediately called Deputy Martinez, then Mrs. Garrett, reporting the visit and his concerns. Both officials took the situation seriously, promising to investigate Harrison's credentials and alert other agencies. As he waited for official responses, Noah found himself studying the children with new eyes. If they were veiled children, that suggested significant willfulness to hire private investigators and maintain months-long searches. But it also suggested danger serious enough that two small children had been running and hiding instead of safely at home with their family. The afternoon brought answers that raised even more questions. Deputy Martinez called back with disturbing news. James Harrison is a real private investigator, licensed and bonded. But here's the thing, when we contacted the agency that supposedly hired him, they claim they have no record of any veil case and haven't employed Harrison in over 6 months. Mrs. Garrett's call came an hour later with equally troubling information. "I've been in contact with federal authorities. There are sealed records associated with children matching Lily and Max's descriptions, but the details are classified at a level that suggests federal witness protection or similar security protocols." That evening, as Noah helped the children with dinner and homework, he noticed they were both more subdued than usual. Max stayed close to Noah's side, while Lily kept glancing toward the windows, as if expecting to see unfriendly faces looking back. "Are we going to have to run away again?" Max asked quietly as Noah tucked him into bed. "No, buddy. Nobody's going anywhere. This is your home now, and I'm going to make sure you're safe here." "But what if the bad men find us?" Noah sat on the edge of the bunk bed, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes or do things that hurt children. But there are also grown-ups whose job it is to protect kids from those bad people. "I'm going to work with them to make sure you and Lily stay safe." Max nodded, but Noah could see the fear lingering in his dark eyes. These children had learned too young that the world could be dangerous and that safety was something that could be taken away without warning. As he settled into his own bed that night, Noah reflected on how dramatically his life had changed. 3 weeks ago, his biggest worry had been paying the heating bill. Now, he was potentially harboring children who might be targets of dangerous people, dealing with federal agencies, and facing decisions that could affect not just his own family, but the safety and future of 2 small children who'd already endured too much uncertainty. But looking at the peaceful faces of 3 sleeping children, Noah knew he'd make the same choice again. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever complications arose from their mysterious past, Lily and Max belonged here now. They were family, and family protected each other no matter what the cost. 3 weeks had passed since the mysterious visitor, and life had settled into a cautious new normal. Federal agents had interviewed Noah twice, their questions careful and revealing nothing about what they knew or suspected about Lily and Max's background. The children remained in his care under emergency protective custody, while investigations continued behind closed doors. The sophisticated tracking device Noah discovered while cleaning Max's snow boots had answered some questions while raising others. Hidden in the heel, so small it was nearly invisible, the device explained how the fake private investigator had found them so quickly. Mrs. Garrett had turned it over to federal authorities, but not before Noah realized these children had been living under electronic surveillance, either for their protection or to monitor their movements. "Someone's been tracking them this whole time," Noah had told Deputy Martinez. "The question is whether it was the good guys or the bad guys." The community had rallied around their expanded family with typical mountain solidarity, but Noah could sense the underlying tension. People whispered about federal agents asking questions, about the children's expensive clothes and educated speech, about the danger that might be following two small kids to their quiet town. Still, the children were thriving in ways that made Noah's heart swell with pride and protectiveness. Max had progressed through 2 grade levels of math workbooks and was reading simple chapter books. His teachers spoke of gifted programs and advanced placement, concepts that seemed surreal when applied to a 4-year-old who still needed help tying his shoes. Lily's artistic abilities had exploded with access to proper supplies donated by the Community Art Center. Her drawings showed increasing sophistication and emotional depth, often featuring elaborate houses with many rooms and gardens, always populated by families of 4, standing together under sunny skies. She draws what she wants, not what she remembers, the school counselor had observed. That's a healthy coping mechanism for children processing trauma and change. The most significant development came during a quiet Saturday morning as Noah worked on repairing the cabin's front steps. The children were playing in the yard, their laughter mixing with the sound of his hammer and the distant call of mountain birds. It was the kind of perfect moment that made all the complications and uncertainties seem manageable. Max approached him with the serious expression he wore when grappling with important questions. "Noah, can I ask you something about money?" Noah set down his hammer and gave the boy his full attention. "Of course, buddy. What's on your mind?" "Before, when we lived in the big house, there were lots of people who worked for us, drivers and cooks and people who cleaned and did the garden. Does that mean we were rich?" The question was asked with genuine curiosity rather than longing, but it revealed how much the children were beginning to process about their changed circumstances. "It sounds like your family had a lot of money, yes. Does that make you sad, missing those things?" Max considered this carefully, his dark eyes thoughtful. "I miss some people. Elena used to make cookies, and James taught me about birds. But I like it better here because you and Mia don't go away." Noah felt his throat tighten. "What do you mean they went away?" "In the big house, people were always leaving. Mama would go on trips, and sometimes she'd be gone for weeks. The helpers would quit or get new jobs. Even our teachers kept changing." Max picked up a small stone and examined it with scientific precision. "Here, you come home every day, and Mia is always Mia, and everything stays the same." "Stability," Noah said, understanding. "You like knowing what to expect." "Yes, and I like that when you say you'll do something, you always do it." That afternoon, while the children napped and Noah caught up on paperwork, he found himself thinking about Max's observations. These children had come from wealth and privilege, but they'd also experienced a kind of poverty of consistent relationships, of reliable emotional security, of simple stability. His phone rang, interrupting his reflections. Mrs. Garrett's voice was tense with excitement and concern. "Noah, I need you to listen carefully. We've had a breakthrough in the case, but it's complicated. The children's mother has been located, and she's requesting immediate contact." Noah's heart clenched. The call he'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure had finally come. Where has she been? Why hasn't she been looking for them? She has been looking, but not through official channels. Noah, Lily, and Max's mother is Serena Vale, the philanthropist and tech heiress. She's been conducting a private search because she was told the children were kidnapped by her ex-husband as part of a custody dispute that turned dangerous. Noah sat down heavily. Serena Vale had heard the name in connection with charitable foundations and technology innovations. A billionaire, if the newspapers were accurate. She's been afraid to involve traditional law enforcement because she believes her ex-husband has connections that could endanger the children further. But when the tracking device we found was traced back to her security team, she realized they'd been found safe. Her security team put a tracker on her own children. For their protection, apparently. Noah, there's more. Marcus Vale, the children's father, is suspected of involvement with some very dangerous people. Money laundering, possibly organized crime connections. Serena has been hiding the children from him, not from law enforcement. Noah's mind raced, trying to process this information. So the children aren't in witness protection, they're hiding from their own father. Exactly. And according to federal investigators, Marcus Vale has been getting closer to finding them. That fake private investigator who visited you was probably working for him. The implications hit Noah like a physical blow. These children weren't just traumatized, they were in genuine danger from their own father. And their mother, this Serena Vale, was presumably coming to take them away from the only stable home they'd known in months. When does she want to see them? She's flying in tomorrow. Noah, I have to ask, how do you think the children will react? They've bonded strongly with your family, and this is going to be a major disruption. Noah looked toward the bedrooms where 3 children slept peacefully, unaware that their world was about to change again. I honestly don't know. They've mentioned their mama, but they've also said they don't want to leave here. It's going to be complicated. That evening, Noah struggled with how to prepare the children for their mother's arrival. During dinner, he tried to gauge their feelings about their previous life. "Do you miss your mama?" he asked gently. Lily's response was immediate and complex. "Yes, but I'm scared to see her too. What if she takes us back to where the scary men can find us?" Max nodded agreement. "Mama tried to keep us safe, but she wasn't very good at it. You're better at keeping us safe." The simple statement broke Noah's heart. These children loved their mother, but had learned not to trust that love would be enough to protect them. They'd found security with him that they'd apparently never experienced before, despite having every material advantage. "If your mama comes to see you, what would you want to tell her?" Noah asked. Lily answered without hesitation, "That we want to stay here with you and Mia, that we're happy and safe and we don't want to move again." "But we'd want her to stay too," Max added. "If she could live here with us, that would be perfect." Noah smiled at the 4-year-old's simple solution to a complex problem. "That's a beautiful idea, buddy." Later that night, as he checked locks and windows in the security routine Max had requested, Noah reflected on the impossible situation developing. Tomorrow, he would meet a billionaire who wanted to reclaim her children from the blue-collar single father who'd been caring for them. The children clearly loved their mother, but trusted him more. The mother had unlimited resources, but had apparently failed to provide the stability and security these children desperately needed. The only certainty was that everyone involved loved Lily and Max and wanted what was best for them. The challenge would be figuring out what best actually meant when it came to 2 small children who'd already experienced too much upheaval and uncertainty. As Noah settled into bed, he allowed himself one last night of believing that his biggest problem was stretching the grocery budget to feed 4 people instead of 2. Tomorrow would bring complications he couldn't yet imagine, but tonight everyone he loved was safe and sleeping under the same roof. For a man who'd learned to appreciate simple blessings, that would have to be enough. The custody documents that arrived by federal courier that morning told a story more complex and heartbreaking than Noah could have imagined. As he sat at his kitchen table reading through the legal papers while the children played in the yard, he began to understand the true scope of what Lily and Max had endured. Serena Vale hadn't just been searching for her missing children, she'd been engaged in a deadly game of cat and mouse with her ex-husband, Marcus Vale, whose connections to organized crime had transformed what should have been a standard custody dispute into a matter of life and death. According to the federal documentation, Marcus had initially won joint custody through legal manipulation and intimidation tactics. But when evidence surfaced linking him to money laundering operations for Eastern European crime syndicates, Serena had obtained emergency protective orders and taken the children into hiding. Marcus's response had been to hire private military contractors to locate and retrieve the children, claiming parental rights while actually intending to use them as leverage against Serena's cooperation with federal investigators. The children hadn't just been kidnapped, they'd been living in safe houses and constantly moving for 8 months, their mother desperately trying to stay one step ahead of people who would stop at nothing to find them. Noah's hands shook as he read the final pages. 2 weeks before the storm that brought Lily and Max to his door, their security team had been compromised. Marcus's men had discovered their location, forcing Serena and the children to flee in the middle of the night. During the escape, the children had become separated from their mother in a bus station during what the report called an incident involving hostile pursuers. Serena had been searching for them ever since, using every resource at her disposal while simultaneously evading capture herself. The tracking device in Max's boot hadn't been placed there by the bad guys. It had been their mother's desperate attempt to find them if they ever became separated again. The sound of a car engine interrupted Noah's reading. Through the window, he watched a black SUV with government plates pull into his driveway, followed by a sleek rental sedan. Federal agents emerged from the SUV, but Noah's attention was fixed on the woman who stepped out of the sedan. Serena Vale was younger than he'd expected, probably mid-30s, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and clothes that managed to look both expensive and practical. But it was her face that stopped Noah's breath, the same serious dark eyes as Max, the same determined chin as Lily. Even across the yard, he could see her hands trembling as she stared at the cabin where her children had been safe for the past month. The children's reaction to seeing their mother was immediate and complex. Lily dropped the wildflowers she'd been picking and ran toward Serena with a cry of "Mama!" that carried both joy and desperation. Max followed more slowly, his 4-year-old face showing the internal conflict between love and learned caution. Noah watched from his doorway as Serena dropped to her knees in the snow, gathering both children against her chest with the fierce desperation of someone who'd thought she might never hold them again. Her composure cracked completely, tears streaming down her face as she whispered words of love and apology, too quiet for Noah to hear. But he could see the children's faces over their mother's shoulder, and what he saw there broke his heart. Love, yes, but also confusion and fear. They clung to Serena, but their eyes kept darting toward Noah, seeking reassurance that he was still there, still protecting them. After several minutes, Serena stood, her children still pressed against her sides, and looked directly at Noah. Even from a distance, he could see her struggle to compose herself as she approached the man who'd cared for her children when she couldn't. "Mr. Wilder," she said, her voice barely steady, "I don't have words for what you've done. How do you thank someone for saving your children's lives?" Up close, Noah could see the toll the past months had taken on her. Despite her wealth and resources, Serena Vale looked like a woman who'd been living on the edge of terror, surviving on adrenaline and hope. Her clothes were expensive but wrinkled, her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her hands shook with exhaustion and emotion. "They're remarkable children," Noah said simply. "It's been our privilege to have them here." Lily tugged on her mother's coat. "Mama, this is Noah. He saved us from the snow, and he makes the best pancakes, and he reads us stories every night, and he never goes away, even when things are scary." The litany of Noah's virtues, delivered with 5-year-old earnestness, brought fresh tears to Serena's eyes. "He sounds like a very special person." "He is," Max said solemnly. "And Mia is our sister now. She taught us how to make friendship bracelets, and she shares everything even when she doesn't have very much." At that moment, Mia appeared from behind the cabin, her arms full of firewood and her cheeks flushed from the cold. She saw the stranger with her father and the 2 smaller children, and Noah watched his daughter's face cycle through recognition, understanding, and something that looked like loss. "You're their mama," Mia said quietly, setting down the firewood and approaching with the careful dignity of someone much older than 8. "I am," Serena confirmed, studying Noah's daughter with the same intensity she'd shown examining her own children. "And you must be Mia. Lily and Max have told me so much about their big sister." Mia's smile was both proud and heartbreaking. "I've been taking good care of them. Daddy taught me how to be responsible for people who are smaller than me." The federal agents remained in the background, giving the family their moment, but Noah was acutely aware of their presence. This wasn't just a reunion, it was the beginning of a complex negotiation about these children's future, with safety, love, and legal rights all pulling in different directions. "Mr. Wilder," One of the agents approached. "We need to discuss the ongoing security situation. These children are still in danger, and their location is no longer secure." Serena's composure cracked again. "You mean we have to run again? They just found stability, safety, a place where they could be children instead of refugees. How is it fair to uproot them again?" "Ma'am, your ex-husband's people are getting closer. That private investigator who showed up here was just the beginning. If we don't move quickly—" "No," Lily interrupted, her voice small but determined. "We don't want to run anymore. We want to stay here with Noah and Mia." Max nodded agreement, wrapping his arms around Noah's leg. "This is our home now. Can't you stay here too, Mama?" The question hung in the air, highlighting the impossible situation they all faced. Serena had unlimited financial resources, but couldn't provide the stability and security her children needed. Noah could offer love and stability, but lacked the means to protect them from the sophisticated dangers pursuing them. "What if," Serena said slowly, looking between Noah and the federal agents, "what if we found a way to make this work? What if instead of taking the children away from the safety they've found, we figured out how to make this place secure enough for all of us?" The lead agent frowned. "Miss Vale, that would require—" "Whatever it requires," she interrupted firmly. "Money, security personnel, new identities, federal protection, whatever it takes. These children have been through enough upheaval. They've found something here that I couldn't give them despite all my resources. Maybe it's time I stopped trying to protect them by running and started learning from the man who's actually succeeded in keeping them safe." Noah felt the weight of everyone's attention, the magnitude of decisions that would affect not just his own family, but the future of two children who'd already endured too much uncertainty. "Miss Vale," he said carefully, "your children are always welcome here. They're part of our family now, no matter what happens. But their safety has to come first." "Then let's make sure they're safe," Serena replied, her voice gaining strength. "All of them. Because if Lily and Max have taught me anything, it's that family isn't just about sharing DNA. It's about the people who show up when everything falls apart and stay until everything's okay again." She looked at Noah with something that might have been hope. "Mr. Wilder, would you be willing to help me learn how to be the kind of parent my children deserve? Because clearly you already are." The offer hung between them, complex, unprecedented, and potentially life-changing for everyone involved. Noah looked at the children watching him with desperate hope, at Mia who'd already claimed Lily and Max as siblings, at a woman who'd had everything and lost what mattered most, now asking him to help her find her way back to her children. Sometimes the most important decisions come disguised as impossible choices. But looking at 4 faces, 3 children, and one mother all waiting for his answer, Noah realized that some risks were worth taking when the alternative was breaking hearts that had already been broken too many times. "Yes," he said simply, "let's figure out how to keep everyone safe and together." The relief on Serena's face was matched by the joy on the children's faces and the quiet satisfaction on Mia's. They had no idea how they were going to make it work, what sacrifices and compromises lay ahead, or how they would navigate the complex dynamics of their unconventional family arrangement. But for the first time since that snowy night, when Noah found 2 small children in a storm, everyone who belonged together was in the same place, committed to finding a way to stay that way. It was a beginning, not an ending, and that made all the difference. The family photo Noah had taken 3 days after Serena's arrival sat on the kitchen table like a declaration of intent. 4 children and 2 adults arranged around the wood stove, faces relaxed and genuine in a way that belied the complex negotiations happening behind the scenes. Mia had insisted they needed a real family picture, and somehow, in that moment, frozen in digital pixels, they looked exactly like what they were becoming, an unconventional family bound together by choice rather than circumstance. But the photo also represented everything they stood to lose if the plan currently being developed by federal agents and security specialists failed to account for the human element at its center. Serena had been staying at the local inn for a week, spending every possible moment at the cabin, but maintaining enough distance to let the children adjust gradually to her presence. Noah watched her struggle with the balance, desperate to reclaim her children, but wise enough to recognize that forcing the issue could damage the fragile trust they were rebuilding. "They're different than they were before," she'd confided to Noah over coffee while the children played outside. "More confident, more secure in themselves." Max never spoke up about what he wanted when we were running. Now he negotiates bedtime like a tiny lawyer. "They know they're safe here," Noah replied. "When children feel secure, their personalities can really emerge." "I can see that. Lily's drawings used to be all dark colors and closed doors. Now she draws houses with windows wide open and people standing together outside." Serena paused, studying the latest artwork taped to the refrigerator. "I want to give them that security permanently, but I don't know how without putting them in danger again." The federal agents working their case had presented a plan that was both comprehensive and disruptive. Witness protection for all of them, new identities, relocation to a secured community where Serena's resources could provide both luxury and safety. On paper, it solved every problem. In reality, it meant uprooting the children again, just as they'd found stability. "The program works," Agent Sarah Chen had explained during a briefing that included both Noah and Serena. "We can provide round-the-clock security, excellent schools, and complete protection from Marcus Vale's organization. But it requires leaving everything behind: community, friends, familiar surroundings. Everything that's made them feel safe," Noah had observed quietly. "Sometimes safety requires sacrifice," Agent Chen replied, but her tone suggested she understood the dilemma. The children, for their part, had made their preferences clear with the straightforward honesty of youth. They wanted to stay in the cabin, continue at their current school, and have both Noah and Serena as parents. The logistics of making that work, while maintaining security, seemed impossible, but their certainty never wavered. "Why can't we just stay here and the bad men stay wherever they are?" Max had asked during one of the family meetings they'd started holding to keep everyone informed. "Because the bad men don't want to leave us alone," Lily had explained with 5-year-old wisdom. "They want to use us to hurt Mama." "Then maybe Mama needs to learn how to be scarier than the bad men," Mia had suggested, earning a surprised laugh from Serena. The breakthrough came when Serena's head of security, a former Navy SEAL named David Torres, visited to assess the situation personally. Instead of immediately dismissing the idea of defending the cabin, he spent 2 days studying the terrain, the community, and most importantly, the family dynamics. "I've been in this business for 15 years, he told Serena and Noah over dinner on his second night. "I've seen families destroyed by security protocols that prioritized physical safety over emotional well-being. These kids have something here they've never had before: genuine stability. That's worth defending." His proposal was audacious in its simplicity. Instead of hiding from Marcus Vale's people, they would make the cabin and surrounding area so secure, so well monitored, and so clearly defended that any approach would be detected and neutralized before it became a threat. "We turned this place into a fortress," Torres explained, spreading maps and security diagrams across Noah's small kitchen table. "Discreet, but comprehensive. The children continue their normal lives, but they're protected by layers of security they'll never see. The plan required significant investment: surveillance systems, communication networks, a security team that would blend into the community, and modifications to the cabin and surrounding property. For Serena, the money was negligible. For Noah, the scale was overwhelming. "It would mean changes to your life too," Serena warned him. "Security protocols, background checks for anyone who visits, restrictions on travel and activities. Your privacy would be compromised, and you'd essentially be under protection as well, since you'd be considered a potential target." Noah looked around his small cabin home he'd shared with Sarah, where he'd raised Mia, where he'd found his purpose as a father. Then he looked at the children playing quietly in the living room, Lily teaching Max to play chess, while Mia read them a story, all 3 of them comfortable and secure in their familiar surroundings. "Some things are worth protecting," he said simply. The next week brought controlled chaos as Torres's team began implementing security measures. To the casual observer, the changes were minimal: few new fence posts, some communication equipment disguised as weather monitoring devices, and several new residents who claimed to be remote workers drawn to the mountain lifestyle, but who were actually highly trained security personnel. The children adapted to the changes with remarkable resilience, treating the security team as extensions of their family. Max appointed himself as unofficial tour guide, showing the agents his favorite climbing trees and the creek where he'd learned to skip stones. Lily drew portraits of everyone on the team, adding their pictures to the family collection on the refrigerator. But beneath the surface, tensions were building. Marcus Vale's organization had tracked Serena's movements to the general area, and intelligence reports suggested they were planning something more direct than previous attempts to locate the children. "We're approaching a critical point," Agent Chen warned during a briefing. "Your ex-husband knows you're here, and he's running out of legal options. That makes him more dangerous because he has less to lose." The final piece of preparation involved contingency planning that no one wanted to discuss, but everyone knew was necessary. If the security measures failed, if Marcus's people breached their defenses, if the situation deteriorated beyond control, they needed escape routes and emergency protocols. "I won't let them be separated again," Serena told Noah as they reviewed evacuation plans. "Whatever happens, we stay together." "Agreed," Noah replied, studying maps that showed safe houses and extraction points across 3 states. "They've been through enough upheaval. From now on, we're one family facing whatever comes together." The irony wasn't lost on either of them that they were planning to defend a life together they'd only recently begun to build. But the children's happiness and security had become the center around which all other decisions revolved. As Noah tucked the children into bed, that night a routine that now included both Lily and Max calling him Daddy Noah and Serena Mama, he reflected on how completely his life had transformed. 2 months ago, his biggest concern had been stretching his paycheck to cover heating bills. Now he was part of a federal security operation, protecting children from organized crime while building a family with a billionaire philanthropist. "Are you scared about the bad men coming?" Max asked quietly as Noah adjusted his blankets. "A little," Noah admitted, having learned that honesty served these children better than false reassurance. "But I'm also confident about all the good people working to keep you safe. Will you promise to stay with us even if things get scary?" "I promise, buddy. We're family now, and families stick together." From the top bunk, Lily's voice was drowsy but determined. "Tomorrow can we take another family picture? I want to draw one that includes everyone, even Mr. Torres and the other security people." "Of course, sweetheart." As Noah turned off the lights and headed to his own room, he found Serena standing in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. "They've never asked me to promise I'd stay," she whispered. "For 8 months, I kept telling them everything would be okay, but they never believed me enough to ask for promises." "They believe it now," Noah assured her. "They believe in us." Outside, the mountain night was quiet, except for the soft sound of wind in the pines and the barely audible hum of sophisticated surveillance equipment maintaining watch over their small family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight everyone was safe under the same roof, protected by both high-tech security and the fierce love of adults who'd learned that some things were worth any risk to defend. The test of their preparations came sooner than anyone expected. At 3:17 a.m., Noah woke to the soft vibration of the security alert device Torres had placed on his nightstand. The children slept on, undisturbed, while Noah and Serena moved quietly through pre-arranged protocols. 3 vehicles had been detected approaching on back roads, their occupants using night vision equipment and moving with tactical precision that suggested professional training. The perimeter alarms had activated silently, alerting the security team without creating panic or noise that might wake the children. Noah's role was simple: stay with the children and be ready to implement evacuation procedures if necessary. Serena's job was to coordinate with law enforcement and federal agents who were already mobilizing in response to the breach. Through his bedroom window, Noah could see nothing but familiar darkness and mountain shadows. But he knew that beyond his vision, highly trained people were moving into position to protect his family from dangers he could barely comprehend. The radio earpiece Torres had given him crackled quietly. All clear, 3 subjects detained. False alarm on the threat level. These were Marcus's people, but they were conducting reconnaissance, not planning immediate action. Stand down from alert status. Relief flooded through Noah, followed immediately by the realization that this had been a test run. Marcus Vale was probing their defenses, learning about their security measures, preparing for something larger. This was just the beginning, Serena said when they gathered in the kitchen afterward, speaking quietly while the children continued sleeping. He's testing us. Torres nodded grimly. Standard tactical approach. Send expendable assets to map our response patterns and security coverage. The real attempt will come later, when he thinks he understands our weaknesses. How much later? Noah asked. Days, maybe a week. He'll want to move quickly before we can adjust our security protocols. The next morning brought the challenge of maintaining normalcy for the children while preparing for escalating danger. Breakfast proceeded with its usual chaos of 3 children competing for attention and parents trying to coordinate schedules around school, work, and security briefings. Why were there so many cars driving around last night? Lily asked, her artist's eye having noticed details the adults hoped she'd missed. Just people doing their jobs to keep everyone safe, Serena replied carefully. Like how Noah does his job plowing snow to keep the roads safe. Max nodded solemnly. The good guys have to work at night sometimes because that's when the bad guys like to sneak around. The children's matter-of-fact acceptance of their circumstances continued to amaze Noah. They'd learned to live with security measures and potential danger without losing their essential childhood optimism and trust in the adults protecting them. School presented new challenges. The children needed to maintain their normal routines, but their safety required discreet escort by security personnel and constant monitoring of their activities. Torres's team had managed to place agents in the school as substitute teachers and maintenance staff, providing protection without alarming other students or parents. This can't continue indefinitely. Noah told Serena as they watched Mia, Lily, and Max board the school bus under the watchful eyes of 3 different security agents. They deserve to live without this level of fear and restriction. I know. That's why we need to end this situation permanently, not just manage it. What do you mean? Serena's expression was determined in a way that reminded Noah of Lily when she'd made up her mind about something. I mean, we stop running and hiding. We stop letting Marcus dictate our lives through fear. We take control of the situation and finish this. The plan she outlined was both brilliant and terrifying. Instead of waiting for Marcus to make his move on their prepared defenses, they would create an opportunity for him to attempt a kidnapping under circumstances completely controlled by their security team. It would require using the children as bait, but with protection so comprehensive that the real danger would be minimal, while the legal consequences for Marcus would be permanent. Absolutely not, Noah said immediately. We don't use children as bait for anything, no matter how safe you think it is. Noah, listen to the whole plan before you decide. We're not putting them in real danger. We're creating the appearance of vulnerability while maintaining complete control. And if it works, they never have to worry about their father again. Torres supported Serena's proposal with tactical modifications that addressed Noah's concerns. The children would be protected by multiple layers of security they wouldn't even be aware of. The operation would take place in terrain favorable to their team, and law enforcement would be positioned to make arrests the moment Marcus or his people made any aggressive moves. It's the difference between playing defense forever or ending the threat permanently, Torres explained. Your choice. But defense eventually fails when the other side has unlimited resources and time to probe for weaknesses. Noah struggled with the decision for days, torn between his protective instincts and the logical recognition that their current situation wasn't sustainable. The children were adapting well, but they deserved lives free from the constant shadow of potential danger. The decision was made for him when intelligence reports revealed that Marcus had acquired detailed architectural plans of the cabin and was planning a coordinated assault involving professional mercenaries. The passive defensive strategy was no longer sufficient. They needed to act before Marcus escalated to violence that could endanger not just their family, but their entire community. "All right," Noah agreed finally. "But I want your guarantee that the children will never know they were part of an operation. To them, it needs to look like a normal family outing that happened to go wrong." "You have my word," Serena promised. "They'll think we're just taking a family trip to visit one of my properties. They'll be surrounded by security they can't see, and the moment anything starts, they'll be extracted to safety before they understand what's happening." As they finalized plans for what Torres called Operation Family Reunion, Noah found himself thinking about the photograph on his kitchen table. In a few days, they would either have the freedom to take many more family pictures, or they would be dealing with consequences too terrible to contemplate. But looking at the children playing peacefully in their living room, secure in the love and protection of adults who would do anything to keep them safe, Noah knew they were making the right choice. Some risks were worth taking when the alternative was living in fear forever. The final preparations began the next morning, setting in motion events that would determine whether their unconventional family would survive to build the future they all desperately wanted. The legal guardianship papers that Torres presented to Noah and Serena on the morning of the operation carried more weight than their official seals suggested. These documents wouldn't just formalize Noah's parental rights to Lily and Max, they represented a declaration that their unconventional family was worth fighting for, worth risking everything to protect. "If something goes wrong today," Serena said, her hands trembling slightly as she signed the papers, "I need to know the children will stay with you, that they won't be shuffled through the system or sent to relatives who don't understand what they've been through." Noah signed his name with steady strokes, accepting responsibility that went far beyond legal guardianship. "Nothing's going to go wrong. But yes, they'll always have a home with me and Mia." The plan was elegantly simple in concept, terrifyingly complex in execution. They would drive to Serena's mountain property an hour away, ostensibly for a family picnic, and to show Noah and Mia the renovated guest house where they might live while maintaining the children's enrollment in their current school. The route would take them through terrain that offered tactical advantages to Torres's security team while appearing natural and unplanned to anyone conducting surveillance. Marcus's people had been monitoring their movements for days, and intelligence suggested they would view the isolated mountain property as an ideal location for an abduction attempt. What they wouldn't know was that the property was surrounded by federal agents. The guest house was equipped with safe rooms and emergency communications, and every possible approach route was covered by sniper teams. To the children, "This is just a family adventure," Torres reminded everyone during the final briefing. "They don't know about the operation, they don't know their father might attempt contact, and they don't know about the security presence. Keep it that way, unless something goes catastrophically wrong." The drive began with the normal chaos of a family outing. Mia had packed snacks and entertainment for the other children, while Lily and Max chatted excitedly about seeing Serena's mountain house and possibly spotting wildlife along the way. Noah drove with practiced mountain skill while Serena pointed out landmarks and told stories about the area's history. To any observer, they looked exactly like what they were supposed to be. Blended family enjoying a beautiful Colorado morning, heading out for a day of exploration and bonding. The security convoy, following at discreet distances, was invisible. The aerial surveillance was silent, and the communications equipment hidden in their vehicle operated without any indication of its presence. "Are there really bears at your house, Mama?" Max asked from his car seat, his 4-year-old imagination captured by Serena's casual mention of local wildlife. "Sometimes, but they're more afraid of us than we are of them," Serena replied, catching Noah's eye in the rearview mirror. The irony wasn't lost on either of them, that bears were probably the least dangerous predators they might encounter today. The mountain property was breathtaking in the early spring sunlight. Serena's simple guest house turned out to be a stunning log structure with modern amenities and panoramic views of snow-capped peaks. The children ran ahead to explore while Noah and Serena carried picnic supplies, both of them hyper-aware of their surroundings despite maintaining casual conversation. "It's beautiful," Noah said honestly, studying the carefully maintained landscape and impressive architecture. "The children would love having this much space to explore." "That's what I hoped you'd think. I bought it as a family retreat, but it never felt like home until now." Serena's smile was genuine, despite the tension they both carried. "Having all of you here makes it complete." They spent an hour exploring the property, the children delighting in discovering a treehouse, a creek with a small bridge, and a barn that housed 2 gentle horses. Mia appointed herself tour guide for Lily and Max, showing them how to feed carrots to the horses, while Noah and Serena prepared lunch on the wraparound porch. The attack came exactly as Torres had predicted during the relaxed vulnerability of mealtime, when the family appeared most off guard and least prepared for threats. Noah was cutting sandwiches when his earpiece crackled with urgent warnings. Multiple vehicles approaching from the East Access Road, 6 hostiles, moving fast, armed. Initiating containment protocols now. To the children, Noah's sudden stillness looked like simple concentration on his task. "Mia, why don't you take Lily and Max inside to wash their hands before lunch?" His daughter, sensitive to adult moods, even when she didn't understand their source, immediately herded the younger children toward the house. "Come on, guys. Let's see if there are any games inside." Serena moved closer to Noah, her voice barely audible. "How close are they?" "Close enough to see us, not close enough to interfere yet." Torres' voice responded through their earpieces. "Continue normal activities. We have complete containment." But Marcus Vale was more desperate and better prepared than anyone had anticipated. The 6 men approaching from the east were a diversion. The real threat came from the west, where Marcus himself led a second group that had infiltrated the property hours earlier and been waiting in concealment. The first indication of true danger was the sound of vehicles racing toward the house at high speed, followed immediately by the crack of gunfire from multiple directions. Noah's training from his military days kicked in instantly, even as his civilian mind struggled to process that his children were in the middle of a firefight. "Get the kids to the safe room," Serena shouted, already moving toward the house as Torres's voice filled their earpieces with tactical updates and position reports. The next minutes unfolded with the surreal quality of emergency situation, hyper-clean details mixed with chaos, time distorting as adrenaline and training took over. Noah herded 3 confused and frightened children through the house toward the reinforced room Torres had shown them earlier, while Serena coordinated with security teams through her phone. "What's happening?" Mia asked, her 8-year-old voice steady despite the obvious fear in her eyes. "Just some grown-up problems that other grown-ups are fixing," Noah replied, lifting Max while keeping Lily close to his side. "We're going to play a hiding game until everything's quiet again." But Max had lived through too much to be fooled by euphemisms. "It's the bad men, isn't it? They found us again." Before Noah could answer, the sound of boots on the porch announced that their safe haven had been breached. Through the window, Noah saw a figure he recognized from security briefings, Marcus Vale, moving with deadly purpose toward the house where his children were hiding. The man looked nothing like the successful businessman from newspaper photos. This Marcus Vale wore tactical gear, carried military weapons, and moved with the focused intensity of someone who had nothing left to lose. His obsession with reclaiming his children had crossed the line from desperate love to dangerous possession. "He's inside the perimeter." Torres's voice was grim. "Moving to intercept, but he's going to reach the house first." Noah made a decision that would define everything that followed. Instead of waiting in the safe room for rescue, he would meet Marcus Vale in the main area of the house, drawing him away from the children and giving the security team time to end the threat. "Serena, get them into the safe room and lock it down. Don't open it for anyone except Torres or federal agents with proper identification." "No, that's not the plan." Plans change. Those children are not going through another trauma if I can prevent it. He kissed Mia's forehead, squeezed Lily and Max's hands, and looked into Serena's eyes with complete certainty. Take care of our kids. I'll be back as soon as this is over. The confrontation between Noah Wilder and Marcus Vale would last less than 3 minutes, but it would determine the future of everyone he loved. The wedding rings Noah had started carrying on a simple chain around his neck, his own and Sarah's, joined now by a promise ring. Serena had quietly given him the week before, pressed against his chest as he stepped into the main room to face Marcus Vale. The simple metal circles represented love, commitment, and the kind of family bonds that Marcus would never understand, despite sharing DNA with 2 of the children Noah was protecting. Marcus stood in the center of the room, his expensive tactical gear and military-grade weapons, a stark contrast to the homey comfort of Serena's mountain retreat. He was younger than Noah had expected, probably early 40s, with the kind of desperate intensity that made dangerous men unpredictable. "Where are my children?" Marcus demanded, his voice carrying the edge of someone accustomed to having his demands met immediately. "They're safe," Noah replied calmly, positioning himself between Marcus and the hallway that led to the safe room. "And they're going to stay that way." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You think you can keep them from me? I'm their father. I have legal rights that some blue-collar nobody can't override." "You lost those rights when you endangered them," Noah said quietly. "When you chose crime over your children's safety. When you forced them to run and hide instead of growing up in peace. You don't know anything about my situation, about what I was trying to protect them from." Marcus moved closer, his hand resting on his weapon. "I'm taking them home where they belong. This is their home now. They chose it, and they chose us." The statement hit Marcus with visible force. For a moment, his controlled facade cracked, revealing the pain of a man who'd lost his children through his own choices and couldn't accept the consequences. "They're 5 and 4 years old. They don't get to choose anything. I'm their father." "Being a father is about more than biology," Noah interrupted. "It's about showing up every day, putting their needs first, making them feel safe and loved. When's the last time you did any of that?" Through the windows, Noah could see Torres's security team moving into position, but he also knew that any sudden action might trigger violence that could endanger the children. His job was to keep Marcus focused on him until the professionals could end the threat safely. "You think you're some kind of hero?" Marcus's voice rose with anger and desperation. "Taking in rich kids and playing house with their mother? You're nothing but a fortune hunter who got lucky." "I fell in love with those children before I ever met their mother," Noah said honestly. "Before I knew who they were or where they came from. I fell in love with their courage, their kindness, the way they took care of each other. Money had nothing to do with it." "Liar. Everyone wants something. I wanted them to be safe and happy. That's all I've ever wanted." Marcus pulled his weapon, holding it with the practiced grip of someone comfortable with violence. "Step aside. I'm taking Lily and Max, and if you interfere, you'll never see any of them again." Noah didn't move. "You'll have to go through me first." "That can be arranged." The standoff stretched for seconds that felt like hours. Through his earpiece, Noah could hear Torres coordinating the final approach, federal agents confirming positions, the machinery of justice preparing to end Marcus Vale's reign of terror over his own children. But it was a child's voice that broke the tension, Max's 4-year-old words cutting through the adult, posturing with devastating clarity. "Daddy, is that really you?" Both men turned to see Max standing in the hallway, having slipped away from the safe room despite all the precautions. His small face showed confusion and fear as he looked at the father he hadn't seen in months. "Max, buddy, go back to Mama," Noah said gently, not taking his eyes off Marcus. "Max, come to Daddy," Marcus called, his voice softening as he saw his son. "I've been looking for you and Lily everywhere. I've missed you so much." The 4-year-old looked between the two men, his biological father with weapons and tactical gear, and Noah in his simple flannel shirt and jeans, and made a choice that revealed everything about the life he'd been living. "I want to stay with Noah," Max said quietly. He makes me feel safe. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His own son, choosing a stranger over him, finding safety with someone else because Marcus had become the source of danger in his children's lives. "You poisoned him against me," Marcus snarled at Noah. "Turned my own son." "Nobody turned him against you," Noah replied sadly. "Your choices did that." At that moment, Lily appeared beside her brother, having followed him from the safe room. She looked at her father with eyes that held too much knowledge for someone so young. "Why did you bring the scary men again, Daddy?" she asked. "We were finally happy and safe." Marcus stared at his children, the son who chose another man's protection, and the daughter who viewed her own father as a source of fear. The reality of what he'd become, what he'd lost, crashed over him with devastating force. "I just wanted you to come home," he whispered. "This is our home now," Lily said simply, "with Noah and Mama and Mia. We're a family here. I'm your family. I'm your father." "Fathers protect their children," Max said with 4-year-old wisdom. "They don't scare them." The weapon in Marcus's hand wavered as he struggled with the complete collapse of his justifications, his plans, his identity as a father who was fighting for his children. Faced with their rejection, their fear of him, their obvious happiness with the man he'd come to take them from, Marcus Vale finally understood what he'd lost. Torres's voice came through Noah's earpiece. "We have clear shots. Say the word." But Noah was watching a man realize he'd destroyed everything he claimed to love. "Stand down. He's done." Marcus Vale dropped his weapon and sank to his knees, the fight going out of him as completely as if someone had pulled a plug. "I've lost them," he said, his voice breaking. "I've lost my children." "You lost them the moment you chose crime over family," Noah said gently. "But you can still choose to let them be happy." Federal agents flooded the room, securing the scene and taking Marcus into custody. But the real resolution happened when Lily and Max ran to Noah, wrapping their small arms around him and pressing their faces against his chest, seeking comfort from the man who'd proven he would risk everything to keep them safe. "Is it over now?" Lily asked, her voice muffled against Noah's shirt. "Yes, sweetheart. It's over. You never have to be afraid again." Serena emerged from the safe room with Mia, tears streaming down her face as she saw her children safe in Noah's arms and Marcus being led away in handcuffs. The nightmare that had defined their lives for almost a year was finally ending. "Are we really safe now?" Max asked, looking up at Noah with eyes that wanted desperately to believe. "You're really safe now, buddy. All of us are." Torres approached with legal documents that would formalize what had just been demonstrated. Noah Wilder was these children's father in every way that mattered, and no court or criminal would ever challenge that again. The confrontation was over, but the healing could finally begin. For the first time in months, they could stop looking over their shoulders and start looking toward the future they wanted to build together. As they prepared to leave the mountain property, Noah realized he was still wearing the chain with the wedding ring symbols of love that had endured beyond death and grown to encompass new promises, new commitments, new definitions of family. Some battles were worth fighting, not because victory was certain, but because the alternative was unthinkable. Today, love had won over fear, chosen family had triumphed over biology, and 4 children who'd been through too much uncertainty finally had the security they deserved. The drive home would be different from the morning journey, relaxed instead of tense, hopeful instead of fearful, carrying a family that was finally free to be everything they'd chosen to become together. The hand-built addition to Noah's cabin stood as testament to how much their lives had changed in the 6 months since Marcus Vale's arrest and imprisonment. What had once been a small 2-bedroom home now sprawled comfortably across the mountain slope, with enough space for their expanded family while maintaining the cozy intimacy that had made the children feel safe from the beginning. Serena had wanted to buy them a mansion, but Noah and the children had been unanimous in their preference for staying where their story began. Instead, her resources had gone toward creating the perfect blend of their 2 worlds, preserving the simple mountain lifestyle that had given the children stability, while adding the security and comfort that ensured their continued safety and happiness. The morning routine had evolved to accommodate 5 people, but the fundamental warmth remained unchanged. Noah still woke first, starting coffee and checking the weather while the mountain came alive around them. But now Serena joined him in the quiet pre-dawn moments, both of them treasuring the peaceful time before 3 children filled the house with energy and conversation. "Mia's got her presentation on Colorado wildlife today," Serena noted, reviewing the family calendar over her first cup of coffee. "And Max has his advanced math assessment." "Think he's nervous?" Noah asked, adding logs to the wood stove that still provided their primary heat despite all the modern updates to the house. "He spent an hour last night explaining probability calculations to Lily's stuffed rabbit. I think he's ready." The changes in the children over the past months had been remarkable. Max had tested into the gifted program at school and was working with tutors who challenged his mathematical abilities while keeping him emotionally grounded with children his own age. His confidence had blossomed under Noah's steady encouragement and Serena's intellectual stimulation. Lily had discovered a passion for both art and storytelling, creating elaborate picture books about families who found each other in unexpected ways. Her teacher reported that she was reading at a 6th grade level, but still enjoyed being read to at bedtime, as if making up for all the years when bedtime stories weren't possible. Mia had embraced her role as big sister with characteristic determination, becoming the bridge between her father's practical mountain wisdom and Serena's sophisticated world knowledge. She moved easily between discussing hiking trails with Noah and debating environmental policy with Serena, comfortable in both worlds because both worlds valued her completely. The legal resolution of their situation had been swift once Marcus was in custody. Serena's legal team had worked with federal prosecutors to ensure that Marcus would serve significant prison time while also losing all parental rights through the criminal proceedings. The children would never have to fear his interference again, but they also wouldn't grow up carrying hatred for a father who'd lost his way. "We tell them the truth when they're old enough to understand," Serena had decided, that their father made bad choices that hurt people, including them, but that he's sick more than evil. They deserve to know their history without being defined by it. The community had embraced their unconventional family with typical mountain pragmatism. Neighbors who'd known Noah as a struggling single father now watched him navigate his new role as partner to a billionaire philanthropist, and their approval was based entirely on the happiness of the children involved. "Doesn't matter where the money comes from," Tom Bradley had observed at the hardware store. "Those kids are thriving, and Noah's still the same good man he always was. That's what counts." Mrs. Chen had been more direct in her assessment. "Some people are meant to be together, and circumstances are just details. You look at that family, and you see love. Everything else is just paperwork." The financial transformation of their situation had been handled with careful attention to maintaining the values that had shaped their family. Noah continued working construction, not because they needed the income, but because he loved the work and wanted to model the satisfaction of contributing to his community. Serena had established a foundation focused on children's welfare, with offices in Denver but frequent work-from-home days that let her be present for school events and family dinners. They'd established trust funds for all 3 children that would ensure their educational and financial security without spoiling them or removing the incentive to find their own purposes in life. More importantly, they'd created a family culture that valued kindness over wealth, contribution over consumption, and relationships over status. The afternoon found them at the expanded kitchen table, now large enough to accommodate homework time for 3 students with very different academic needs. Lily worked on her phonics while Max tackled multiplication problems that would challenge most middle schoolers, and Mia researched her wildlife presentation with the thoroughness of a graduate student. "Did you know that mountain lions can jump 15 feet vertically?" Mia announced to the table at large. "That's nothing," Max replied without looking up from his math. "Did you know that the probability of seeing a mountain lion in this area is less than 0.003% on any given day?" Did you know that I'm drawing a picture of a mountain lion family with a mama, a daddy, and 3 cubs? Lily added, holding up her latest artwork. Serena and Noah exchanged glances over the children's heads, both of them marveling at how completely normal these moments had become. 6 months ago, homework time had been a frantic juggling act of one adult trying to help 3 children while managing financial stress and security concerns. Now it was a comfortable family routine filled with laughter and learning. The evening brought their favorite ritual dinner together, followed by story time by the fire. The tradition had evolved to include all 5 family members contributing to the storytelling, creating elaborate adventures that often featured families who found each other through storms and stayed together through love. Once upon a time, Mia began that night. There was a man who lived in a small cabin with his daughter, and they were happy but sometimes lonely. And there was a woman who lived in a big house with her children, but they had to run away because of scary things, Lily continued. And then there was a big storm that brought them all together, Max added, his 4-year-old logic cutting straight to the essential elements. And they discovered that families aren't just about being related, Serena said, looking around at the faces illuminated by firelight. They're about choosing to love each other every day. And they all lived happily ever after, Noah concluded, because they learned that the greatest fortune isn't money or big house, it's having people who will always come home to you. Later, after the children were tucked into their beds with the security of routine and unconditional love, Noah and Serena sat on their expanded porch, looking out at mountain views that had become the backdrop for the life they'd built together. "Do you ever miss the simplicity of before?" Serena asked, her hand finding his in the comfortable darkness. "Never," Noah replied honestly. "Simple isn't always better. This is complicated and challenging and sometimes overwhelming, but it's also full of more love and joy than I ever imagined possible. The children are different than they were when I was raising them alone," Serena observed. "More confident, more secure. Max never used to speak up about what he wanted. Lily never drew pictures of open doors and sunny skies. They're different because they know they're safe. Not just physically safe, but emotionally safe to be themselves, to ask for what they need, to trust that the adults in their lives will be there tomorrow." Above them, the Colorado stars shone brilliant in the thin mountain air, the same stars that had witnessed Noah finding 2 small children in a storm and making the choice to bring them home. Now those children slept peacefully in beds, surrounded by security systems and love in equal measure, knowing that they belonged somewhere and to someone completely. The addition to the cabin housed not just extra bedrooms and modern conveniences, but also the dreams and hopes of 5 people who'd learned that family could be created through choice and commitment rather than just biology. In expanding their home, they'd also expanded their hearts, their definition of love, and their understanding of what it meant to belong to each other. Sometimes the most profound changes began with the simplest acts of kindness. Noah Wilder had opened his door to 2 children in a storm, never imagining that he was also opening his life to a love story that would reshape everything he thought he knew about family, fortune, and the courage required to build a life worth living. As they prepared for bed, Noah realized that the wooden toy truck Mia had played with as a small child now sat on a shelf in the playroom, joined by art supplies, advanced textbooks, and all the accumulated treasures of childhood lived in safety and love. The simple carved truck remained, but it was no longer alone, just like their family, expanded beyond what anyone could have predicted, but rooted in the same fundamental values of care, protection, and love that had sustained them from the beginning. Outside, the mountain night settled over their home with the quiet contentment of lives well lived and love well shared. While inside, 5 people who'd found each other against all odds slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that some families were worth any storm, any struggle, any risk to protect and preserve. The future stretched ahead of them, full of ordinary days and extraordinary love, built on the foundation of a snowy night when a man chose to help two small strangers and discovered that sometimes the greatest fortunes come disguised as the simplest acts of human kindness.